kiss for you.
Alright, today we're going to be looking at No Man's Sky, and we're going to be trying to answer the question, or the idea, that you probably won't like No Man's Sky, but it is an amazing game. I personally like No Man's Sky, and I think you should check it out. However, you really need to understand kind of what you're going to be getting into if you do try to dive into this game. There's three main reasons why I think a lot of people aren't going to like this game, and I'll try and lay them out here. The first one, this is a survival game first with a lot of systems and elements like gathering, crafting, upgrading, and specifically its recharge system that not a lot of people kind of fully understand that I want to dive into. The second reason, as you can kind of see here, is just the amount of time you spent effectively doing nothing, right? You're going to a planet. In this case, I'm going to this planet here as an example. You activate your pulse drive, and it's going to take you anywhere from 45 seconds to 3 minutes to get to most of these planets. So the time spent doing nothing, from going to planets to gathering resources and everything like that, is a major factor. The third thing is the redundancy in a lot of its upgrade systems and mechanics, which I'll extrapolate on a little bit. But let's just kind of dive into what this game is. No Man's Sky is a survival sandbox space game, very specifically. It's a survival game first, then it's a sandbox game, then it's a space game. Its main loop involves mining materials on planets, crafting those materials into usable items, selling those items at whatever station or trade unit you have, buying upgrades to things like your suit, your tools, your ship, your building ability, your exocraft, etc., doing main story or side story objectives to get nanites, which is effectively like the goal-oriented currency in the game, using that for skill tree unlocks, for your ability to craft higher, better level options. These options let you obviously take on more hostile enemies and go to higher level planets effectively, right? So let's just land down here real quick. Find a place to land. Usually you gotta land on like flat ground, so there we go. The resource gathering part of the game is what you will probably be doing the most, and since each planet has different resources that you have to gather, it means that you're planet hopping from various planets and various systems and collecting the items to be able to craft better stuff. This is ultimately a survival game loop, and it's the loop that No Man's Sky does as well, right? What makes No Man's Sky, I would say, even more abrasive experience for people that aren't used to this kind of game is the recharge system. It's a pretty unique pillar to this game that not a lot of other ones might have. So the recharge system, as you can probably see in the bottom left there above the health icon, and what's happening there, is that this recharge system is dependent on the elements. So like right now, for example, you'll see it's green, which means this planet is poisonous. If I open up my inventory here, you'll see a couple of different options. You'll have my breathing recycle, which is for water. You'll have my ceramic thermal guard, which is for thermal protection. You'll have my hazard protection, which protects against some elements, and then you'll have my health. All of these effectively shields that you can get in the game, I think there's 9 of them. These protect you against various elements, right? Heating, water, cold, general hazard protection that you can then be a little more specific with your shields in. And these are things you have to recharge, right? As you can see in the bottom left, my health is going down and the green thing is going down because this is a poisonous planet that I'm on right now. And what you have to do is go into here and recharge your hazard shield with whatever you have, in this case sodium nitrite, and you'll recharge it. There is a lot of recharging in this game. In fact, I would say it's a large part of what you end up doing in the game is recharging things. And so you end up having to go here, recharge your health, in this case, recharge your shields, and so in this case, at a very light level, you have your health, you have your hazard shields, 2 of them, you have that's 4 here. You also have your starship, which has things like your pulse engine that you got to recharge. It has your boost, it has your launch to be able to actually move. And then it has, some weapons and stuff also need to be recharged. And then you have your multi-tool, which has, dependent your mining beam, recharging that. Any other weapons you have, my blaze javelin needs a recharge, my plasma launcher needs a recharge, my terrain manipulator recharge. So there's a lot of recharging in the game. That's what, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 different things here that I'm recharging at a pretty consistent basis, right? So a large part of the game is going to be, as you can see, mining. So up here you have something that has, dihydrogen. Let's just start mining it. As you can see, you just stand here and the thing goes down, you collect resources, and your bar up there at the top right is basically your heat gauge, effectively. So you'll do that. You'll collect resources, as you can see here, and you'll use those resources to build, various things. And then in my case, the way I make money in the game is I make these circuit boards, which sell for about $1 million each, which need heat capacitors and polyfiber. Polyfiber's cactus flesh and star buds, so I collect those. And the heat capacitor, needs frost crystals and selenium, so I do that, and then I make the circuit boards and I sell those for money, and that's how I make a decent amount of money. So there's various ways to make money and stuff in the game, but really the first point here is talking about the survival elements. You're going to be recharging a lot of stuff. You're going to be gathering a lot of stuff. You're going to be upgrading a lot of things. And if people are not ready for that level of commitment that the game requires in that, then that's obviously a big thing. The other thing you're going to be doing a lot of is scanning. As you can see, I'm scanning items here, and I have an upgrade that gives me more units when I scan stuff. One thing, and I'll talk about this when I get to the redundancy of the systems, is even though these things may look different, and No Man's Sky is pretty good at giving you variety, it doesn't give you a lot of mechanical depth. These items may look different, but they're going to give you the same ferrite dust that any other thing that may look different will give you. Right? But I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to more about redundancies. So that's all about, survival elements and that kind of thing, and how much of a survival game this is. The second thing is the time spent doing nothing. A lot of No Man's Sky ends up kind of just being looking around for different materials, whether it be something you can utilize or something you're looking for, right? In my case here, I'm looking for a Gravino Ball, which is a thing I can use to upgrade certain parts that I'm looking for, and you have to go to high sentinel activity areas. The plant I'm on, as you saw from the start, is a high sentinel activity, and so right now I'm looking for a Gravino Ball. What you do to look for things like this is you scan and you look and say, okay, do I have any relics anywhere? And you look for these icons that are near you. In this case, subterranean relic, that could be a Gravino Ball. So I'm going to go and look for it there. So on top of the survival elements, it's what I say a lot of time doing nothing. What I mean is you're doing a lot of scanning, a lot of looking, a lot of searching, and a lot of recharging. And a lot of that, for people, is not necessarily something that they enjoy and like doing. Right? Having to constantly recharge things and get materials to recharge things and figuring out, okay, in order to craft an ion battery, I need what? I need cobalt, which I have, and ferrite dust, and so now I have to find something that has ferrite dust. Right? So it's a lot of figuring out, I'm on a planet, I don't have resources, let me try and figure out where the resources are to craft the things you need, right? To constantly recharge stuff. And other times you'll get these weird things where the thing you scan disappears. There it is. So in this case with this, let's go terrain manipulator and just start digging down, and we'll eventually get to it. But if you're underground, okay, that's subterranean thing achieved. In this case, it's a box. Let's open the box. Got some cubes. Let's scan this. A lot of this game is what I'm doing here. It's scanning things. It's mining for resources. It's looking for the resources you're trying to get to, right? And trying to basically stay afloat. There is a lot of stuff to do in the game. So the game is not, content light or anything. It's just the type of game it is, I don't think will necessarily, make a lot of people that excited. Which is, obviously, pretty different to a lot of other games. The last major reason that a lot of people don't tend to like No Man's Sky is the fact that the redundancy of a lot of its systems, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but there's multiple ways to complete a goal in No Man's Sky, and what that ends up happening is a lot of redundant systems of how to do things. That comes in the form of being able to access certain items, like the trade terminal you can use to sell things. You can access that trade terminal by building one at your base when you make one, getting the upgrade for one that's actually on your player, having one access at your freighter, which is a basically mega ship that you can take control over and build a base on. You can access the trade terminal at any space station, access it on the anomaly as well. Another example is upgrading your multi-tool functionality. This can be done by building and then staffing a multi-tool shop at your base, doing the same thing at a freighter, through a space station of some kind, or at upgrading the possible options that you have for that at the anomaly skill tree. That's an important distinction. Actually, upgrades that are obtained through space stations or base shops are not skill tree unlocks. Skill tree unlocks, for the most part, are done through the anomaly, which means that if you want to gain access to new multi-tool combat options, or new suit gadgets, or new building pieces, that will be done at the Anomaly and not through a space station or a base station shop. Base stations in general are for things like constructing or other options, are just what you currently have unlocked. They are effectively a way to view what your currently unlocked stuff is. The exception to that is exocrafts, which are like mounts, basically. Those are a little bit different since they are locked until a certain main quest is complete. This is unlike the other categories of items, which have no unlock requirements other than the nanites that you collect. If you wanted to, you can unlock the blueprint for high-level multi-tool and suit options at any time, so long as you have the nanites, which are the gold-based currency I mentioned before. Exocrafts are not an option, since they aren't something that that's given to you by the game unless you complete a main story section first. However, you can still buy exocraft upgrades and skill tree unlocks for them beforehand. The majority of the game is figuring out what you want to upgrade or unlock and getting the materials to be able to do that successfully. An example of what I mentioned before for redundant systems is, the variety that the game provides you in terms of material gathering. A lot of items and sort of structures, if you will, in the games, fauna and plants and stuff, look different, but they don't functionally do anything different. They give you the same materials, they break the same way, they have the same, properties to them. There's nothing really unique about that. And so while there's technically a lot of variety in terms of planets, in terms of what they look like, in terms of kind of the properties of them, there's not a lot in terms of the actual mechanical differences to them. And you can kind of see that with the way that No Man's Sky builds out its updates, which is the final thing I want to talk about. No Man's Sky, in the way of a lot of people saying that it's, mile wide, very shallow kind of idea. That's because the goal of the updates is to expand, and it is not to redo anything. Meaning the reason you have 6 different ways to access a terminal is because they just kept adding. Originally, you could only access a terminal on the space station. And then you became access to a building piece on the freighter, and now you can do it on the Anomaly, and now there's a thing you can do it on your player, right? They just kept kind of adding different ways and different accessibility options to get, the various items and the various systems in the game. There's not just one way to upgrade or access things, there's 5 or 6 ways. And that ultimately leads to a little bit of confusion when people try and get into the game. There's a lot in this game that you may never see and may never use. But because of the way the update system works, a lot of the highlights and discussion on No Man's Sky focuses on, oh my god, look at all these cool things you can do. When most of the game, as I hopefully was able to show, isn't that. A lot of the game is going to be the same survival thing that a lot of people are used to. And a lot of recharging and maintaining and scanning and things. And that's not shown in gameplay because it's not interesting. However, it is what I believe a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of. That's not the only way to enjoy the game, but it is a large part of the game that's very hard to ignore. And so I think if you're going into this game, and I really like this game, but if you're going into it, you need to be aware of what the game actually is and be prepared that it's a survival game with a lot of time spent looking and searching and traveling and finding things with a lot of different ways to complete an objective. And so you kind of get that mile wide, inch deep feeling. So hopefully I was explaining that well. Sorry if this video was a little bit disjointed or anything like that. I feel like this kind of coverage and want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the main channel for tech stuff, this channel for game content, game reviews, game highlights, that kind of thing. And I'll see everyone in the next video.